Hello, Israel. It's good to see you again. This is Donnie Israel from Israel's Vineyard, and I have another lesson here for you today. And the name of the lesson is "We have a short time, then we die." We have a short time, and then we die. One thing people always say, "Oh, I'll do it next week." Next year this time, we'll plan for something better or something bigger. Um, you know, um, if they promise somebody something, they say, "Oh, something came up. You know what? I'll make it up to you. I'll do it next week." Like they know if they're gonna be here next week or even tomorrow. And so, this lesson here gonna show that we only here for a short time, then we die. Um, if you look up time, it reads, it says indefinite continuous progress of existence. Continuous progress of existence. And then it says for short, lasting or taking a small amount of time. A small amount of time. All right, we're going to start this off in 2 Peter 3 and 8. 2 Peter 3 and 8. And it says, "But, beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing, that one day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day." So, it says here that one day is the Lord is 1,000 years to us. And so, with God is infinite. Time doesn't matter with him. He don't deal with time. He got all the time to eternity because he's been here. Now we, on the other hand, we have a short time to live and die, and during that process, getting this word here and save ourselves, because when the end comes, when the Lord comes, you're going to get eternity. And so you're going to live for eternity. And so where do you want to live this eternity? In the fire or in the kingdom? All right, next we're going to go over to Genesis 6 and 3. Genesis 6 and 3. And it says, "And the Lord said, My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh. Yet his days shall be 120 years." So he said he won't strive with men. And so he only gave man 120 years to live. But because men did so much evil, he even shortened it even more. So let's go over to Psalms 90 and 10. And it reads, "There shall no evil befall thee." And 90 and 10. 90 and 10, I'm sorry. 90 and 10. And it reads, "The days of our years are 60. It says 60 years and 10. 1 score is 20 years. So now because of all the evil between Genesis and over here in Psalms, he shortened the days even more. So now he's shortened it from 120 to 70 years. He said 70. So that's 20, 40, 60, and plus 10 is 70. So now he's shortened it to 70 years. And if by reason of strength they be 80 years, so he said, and even if you stay healthy, for 80, which is 80, yet is their strength, labor, and sorrow, for it is soon cut off, and we fly away. So he said, even if you live till 80, that in your labor, in your work, and in your grief and your sorrow and whatnot, he said it will be soon cut off. Next, let's go to Exodus 20 and 12. Exodus 20 and 12. And it reads, honor thy father and thy mother. Honor thy father and thy mother. Because Jesus saying, if you honor your father and thy mother, it says, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. So he's saying, if you honor your father and your mother, you show respect and you do what they tell you. He says that your days will be long on the land. Well, as I read before, he gave 120 years before, and then he cut it down to 80 years. So he says, if you honor thy father and thy mother, your days upon the land may be long. He said maybe. He didn't say it will happen, but he said maybe if you honor thy father and thy mother. So that's one commandment, that if you do, it will give you longer life on this earth. Next, let's go over to James 4, and we're going to pick it scripture 14. James 4, chapter 4, it's going to be 14 and 15. James 4. And it reads, whereas ye know not what shall be on the morrow. So he says, you don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. That's what it says here. For what is your life? It is even a vapor. So he said, you don't know what tomorrow brings. He said, and your life is a vapor. What's a vapor? A vapor is like a puff of air. It's a puff. It's a steam. And it disappears in no time. And then he says, that appeareth for a little time, and then it vanished away. And that's what a vapor does. And so he's comparing our life on this earth as a vapor. And verse 15, it says, for that ye are to say, if the Lord will, we shall live and do this or do that. So he's saying that instead of saying, I'll see you next week, or we're going to plan this a year from now, or we're going to do this, he said, if it's God's will, then we could do this or we could do that. So, if in other speaking of your own mind about next week and the week before, he's saying here, if you say if it's God's will, then we could do this and we could do that. And so by doing that, then it's not a sure thing, but by doing that, you confide in that time forth in his name. Next, we're going to go into Ecclesiastes 9 and 4. Ecclesiastes 9 and 4, and it reads, for to him that is joined to all the living, there is hope. So he's saying, whoever is living, there's hope for you. What he mean? What hope? he mean the hope of being of getting saved. So, and how to get saved? By doing what the commandments say, by doing every word that's in this book. Thus said the Lord, by doing everything that the Lord say. So he's saying while you're living, you have a chance to do what you have to do to get salvation. And then it says, for a living dog is better than a dead lion. Well, you know how dangerous a lion is. So he's saying he at least a living dog, because a lion would tear a dog into pieces. But he's saying here that a dog that's alive is better than a dead lion. So, in other words, that life is better than death. And so, while you are alive, you have time to seek the Lord. Verse 5, it says, for the living know that they shall die. Because if if you living, if you're alive, you know that you will die. But the dead know not anything. So he said, once you go in the ground, you don't know anything. Just like you got these people when somebody dies, they say, oh yeah, my mama's looking down from heaven, she's guiding me, or and all these sort of things. But you hear what Jesus says here. But the dead know not anything. Not anything. How definite is that? Nothing. They know nothing because they're dead. And then it says, neither have they any more a reward. So Jesus says, he who endure to the end will be saved. He says, when he comes, his reward will be with him. So while you are alive, if you seek the Lord and you do according to thus said the Lord, then he says, so when he comes, he could give you this reward. But if you die and you didn't seek his face and you didn't do thus said the Lord, then he says here, neither have they any more a reward. So that reward that you'll get will be the lake of fire. And then it says, for the memory of them is forgotten. Because, just like he says, when you die and you're gone, your memory is forgotten. And nobody remembers, because that's just the way it is. So Luke, we're going to go to Luke 12 and 13. Luke 12 and 13. And this is Jesus here. It says, and one of the company said unto him, Master, speak to my brother, that he divide the inheritance with me. So here he's asking the master to share the inheritance between him and his brother. And 14, and it says, and he said unto him, Man, who made me a judge or a divider over you? So he asking them who made him a judge or a divider or somebody who would separate that inheritance. And then 15, and he says, and he said unto them, Take heed and beware of covetousness, for a man's life consists not in the abundance of the things which he possesses. So he's telling them beware, because he says a man's life don't depend on what he has. Verse 16, and he spake a parable unto them, saying, The ground of a certain rich man brought forth plentiful. So he was giving them a parable. He says, in modern time, the man, he made some company or he whatever, and it made him a lot of money. And then it says, 17, and he thought within himself, saying, What shall I do? So He's sitting there contemplating, oh, I got all this money. What should I do? What should I do with it? And then continuing, it says, because I have no room where to bestow my fruits. So this man got so rich that the bank that he had his money, it couldn't hold all his money. He had just too much. So verse 18, and he said, this will I do. So after contemplating, he said, you know what? This is what I'm going to do. And then he says, I will pull down my barn and build greater. I will pull down my barn and build greater. So he's saying that, you know what? That bank ain't gonna hold all my money. So you know what? I'm gonna open another bank, a bigger one. And then it says here, and then there will I bestow all my fruits and my goods. So he said, you know what? Because that bank couldn't hold all what I have, I'm gonna go and get a bigger bank and put everything that I have in it. And then 19, it says, and I will say to my soul, soul, thou hast much good laid up for many years. Take thine ease, eat, drink, and be merry. So you hear what this guy said? He said, yeah, I said to myself, I got so much laid up that could last me for a lifetime. And so you know what? I'm going to take it easy now. I'm going to eat, I'm going to drink, and I'm going to be happy. That's what this man say. So then verse 20, but God, Jesus, this is what Jesus said. But God said unto him, so Jesus said unto him, thou fool. Right? And what's a fool? Somebody lacking good sense and understanding. So God said, this night thy soul shall be required of thee. So the Lord said to him, tonight you will die. So after this guy stole up all this stuff and all this money he had, because you remember you read over here about the abundance, a man's life is not dependent on the abundance of the things that he accumulate. And so the Lord said, this night is required of thee. Then who shall those things be which thou hast provided? So now the Lord said, well, now that you're going to die, what's going to happen with all the stuff that you got? Because you can't do anything with it now because you will die. And verse 21, so is he that layeth up treasures for himself and is not rich toward God. So we only have a short time, and we want to get this master's degree. We want to wait till we do all this stuff, and after that, I'll get married, I'll find I'll have the kids, I'll have the big house, I'll do all the stuff. But nobody knows when the Lord going to say this night is required of thee, because he could wait until you accumulate all the stuff, and then he'll say, this night is required of thee. And then what? So he says, so is he that layeth up treasures for himself and is not rich toward the Lord. So what's being rich towards the Lord? That's by keeping his commandments. Honoring your father and thy mother. Not committing adultery. Don't be a false witness against your neighbor. So to be rich and so you want to be rich towards God and not towards man and not towards things. And so this is what this parable is talking about. So I'm gonna read verse 22, and it says, and he said unto his disciples, this is Jesus, therefore I say unto you, take no thoughts for your life, what ye shall eat, neither for the body what ye shall put on. And then he says, the life is more than meat, and the body is more than raiment, which is clothes. So that's the parable that the Lord says. He said, don't take any thought for your life, because it's a vapor, but get rich towards God. Next, we're gonna go into Acts 5 and read 1 to 10. Acts 5. This is another thing that happened to a man and his wife, because they wanted to. Well, let me read. It says, verse 1, but a certain man named Ananias with Sapphira his wife sold a possession. So the husband and wife, they sold a possession. Verse 2, and kept back part of the price. So they sold this possession and they kept back part of the money for themselves. And then it says, his wife also being privy to it. So being privy to it meaning that she knew, she was there, so she had knowledge that they hold back this possession, and brought a certain part and laid it at the apostles' feet. So they sold this possession and they brought part of it to the apostle. Verse 3, but Peter said, Ananias, why hath Satan filled thine heart to lie to the Holy Ghost, which is a no-no, and to keep back part of the price of the land? So this possession that they sold was their property. And so what they were doing, it was they were selling the property and they was bringing the money to the apostles so they could distribute it to the poor. So verse 4, it says, while it remained, was it not thine own? So he says, before you brought this money to me, wasn't it your money? You sold it. It was yours. I didn't even know how much you sold it for. So, and then he says, and after it was sold, was it not in thine own power? And then he says, even after you sold it, because you already thought in your mind and what you're going to do since you got so much for the house. And then he said, even after you had sold it, it was still in your power, meaning that you still owned it. So, in other words, it was your power to do your will with it. So, it says, why hast thou conceived this thing in thine heart? Thou hast not lied unto men, but unto God. So, he's saying that you didn't lie to me, you lied to God. The promise was to God. And when you promise to God and you don't do it, he require of it. Verse 5, and Ananias, hearing these words, fell down. He fell down, he died. So they sold this possession and they hold back the money. So now he sold this money and he didn't even get to spend it because he died. And great fear came on all them that heard these things. So after he died, all the people who did the same went out and sold the possession. They all got scared because they was like, oh man, if he fell down and died, the same probably could happen to me. Verse 6, and the young men arose and wound him up and carried him out and buried him. Verse 7, and it was about the space of 3 hours. So 3 hours, his wife, she didn't even know that he had died. So 3 hours later, she came to the apostle. When his wife, not knowing what was done, came in. So she didn't know what happened, so she came in. And Peter answered unto her. So Peter asked her, tell me whether you sold the land for so much. So Peter asked her, did you sell the land for, how much Ananias said he sold it for? Because Ananias told Peter how much he sold it for. And so he asked her the same question. And she said, yeah, for so much. So because you remember she was privy to it, she knew how much they sold it for and how much they held back. And so, verse 9, it says, then Peter said unto her, how is it that ye have agreed together to tempt the Spirit of the Lord? Behold, the feet of them which have buried thy husband are at the door, and shall carry thee out. So Peter tell her the same thing that befall your husband is the same going to happen to you, because the men are at the door. Verse 10, then fell she down straightway at his feet, and yielded up the ghost. And the young men came in, and found her dead, and carried her forth and buried her by her husband. So, we're here for a short time and then we die. So, let's go over to Revelation 12 and 12. Revelation 12 and 12. And it says, therefore rejoice, ye heaven, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devils come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he had but a short time. So we don't know how much time we have. We act like we have eternity, but the devil, he knows how much time he have. And so over here, when Peter said to him, he said, how did you let the devil enter? And so the devil is the one behind this. He don't want you to know how much time you have. He want you to party. He want you to go drinking. He want you to do all the stuff, thinking that you have a long time. But he want to get you before you do what? Over here, where I read that where your treasure should be towards God. So he don't want you to save these treasure towards God. He want you to die before that, because he knows where he's going, in the pit, in the lake, and so he wants you also to go into this lake. Next, we're gonna go over to Psalms 144 and 4. Psalms 144 and 4. And it reads, man is like to vanity. What's vanity? Vanity is just here one day and then the next day is nothing. It's just like a car. You buy it today, and even before, as soon as you drive it off the property, you might have paid 10,000 for it. You drive it off the property, it's only worth 8,000. So vanity is like that. It's here for a minute and then it's gone. So he's saying that's what man is like. That's what man life is. His days are as a shadow that passeth away. And what's a shadow? If you ever stand in the sun, you see it casts your shadow. One time it's in one position, the next thing is in another position. So it's just like a shadow. It's like boom, boom, and it's done. All right, let's go over to 1 Peter 1 and 17. 1 Peter 1 and 17. And it reads, and if ye call on the Father, who without respect of person judges according to every man's work. So he says, if you call into the Father, because the Father is not a respecter of person, just like those preachers in the Sunday church. If you got money, then you get the respect. You got nothing, you sit in the back. But with the Lord, he ain't a respecter of person. You do what he says, you get what he says he's going to give you. You don't do what he says, you get what he says you will get if you don't do what he says. It says, and he judged according to every man's work, which is this book, the commandments, living by this book, every word that proceeded out of the mouth of the Lord. And then he says, pass the time of your sojourning here in fear. So he's saying that this little time that you're here, he said, live in fear. What fear? One of the commandments, he says, fear the Lord thy God with all your heart and soul and mind. Because if you do that, then you will do what thus says the Lord. So that's where he says, this little bit of time that you have here, he said, do it in fear of the Lord. Next, we're going to go over to Psalms 103 and 14. 103 and 14. It says, for he knoweth our frame. What's our frame? This body. He remember it that we are dust, because from dust he formed man from the dust of the ground. That's what it says here. He, meaning Jesus, he know that we are dust. Verse 15, and it says, as for a man, his days are as grass. So we all know that grass flourishes, in the summer, when it got rain, it grows in a few days. You cut it yesterday, in a few days it's there again, and then you cut it again. But when winter comes, that grass goes dormant. It doesn't grow. So that's what he says. That's what man is like. As a flower of the field, so he flourisheth. Just like a flower just like a flower. If you see a rose, you pick it. It looks beautiful. All of a sudden, a few days, it just dries up, and the petals and everything fall off. And that's what man is. And he only has a short time. Let's go over to Psalms again, 109 and 23. and 23. It says, I am gone like the shadow when it declined. I'm gone like a shadow when it declined. And then it says, I am tossed up and down as the locust. Next, we're going to go, we're going to stay in Psalms, and it will be Psalms 89. Psalms 89, 47 and 48. Psalms 89, 47 and 48. It says, remember how short my time is. Remember how short my time is. Wherefore hast thou made all men in vain? Self-explanatory. Is verse 48. What man is he that liveth and shall not see death? So he's asking, what man is he that live and won't see death? Because we all will see death. And then he says, shall he deliver his soul from the hand of the grave? Selah. So he said, if this man die, would he bring himself back to life? He can't. When he's dead, he's dead. We're going to go into, we stay in Psalms, and we're going to go over to 39, Psalms 39, 5 and 6. Psalms 39, 5 and 6. And it says, behold, thou hast made my days as an handbread. A handbread, that's a funny word. But a handbread is the palm of your hand, the measurement, the width from, side to side. About 2.5, exact, to about 2.5 inches. Right? That's what he said a man days is. A man days is just like the palm of his hand. And you see how small that is. And then he says, and mine age is as nothing before thee. Verily, every man at his best state is altogether vanity. So he says, a man at his best, meaning, like you see these guys, these muscle builders, all the muscles popping out, they're drinking this healthy thing, and they're healthy. That's man at his best. Even when you're young, in your 20s, that's man at his best, because that's the age that he's at his best. You see men in sport or whatnot, and they're at their best. They say they're at the prime. So that's man at his best. And then verse 6, it says, surely every man walketh in a vain shoe. Surely they are disquieted in vain. He heapeth up riches and knoweth not who shall gather them. So he man, he gathers up all his riches, but when he dies, he don't know. He know it. He know it not. Who shall get them? Because when he's dead, he's dead. Next, we're gonna go over to Ecclesiastic 1 and 14. Ecclesiastic 1 and 14. This is the last chapter we're gonna do in this lesson. This lesson was a short lesson. Ecclesiastic 1 and 14. And it says, I have seen all the works that are done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity and vexation of the spirit. So the Lord said he see all the works that's done under the sun. And he said it's vanity and vexation. Vexation is a state of being annoyed, frustration. Just like, we're the poor. And sometimes just to make end meet, we have to have 2 and 3 jobs, and still can't pay your bills. When after your bills paid, you got no food. Friday you get paid, by Monday it's all gone, so you're frustrated. So that's what he said. He know all the works under the sun, and that's what happens to man. And so he store up all the stuff for nothing. Actually, one more. We got one more. Ecclesiastic 8, chapter 8. Ecclesiastic chapter 8, 14 and 15. It says, actually, I'm going to pick it up from 13. It says, but it shall not be well with the wicked, neither shall he prolong his days. So he says, life is not going to be good for the wicked, and he can't prolong his days, which are as a shadow. So he said, the wicked man, his days on this earth is like a shadow. Because when you look out there, you see all the wickedness that's happening. And these men, they get caught sooner or later, and then they die. Because he feared not before God. And I said that earlier, that the scripture I read, it says, fear the Lord. Because it says, for your sojourn, it says, while you're living, fear the Lord. So here he's saying the wicked man, he don't fear God. That's why his days is short. Then verse 14 says, there is a vanity which is done upon the earth, that there be just men, unto whom it happeneth according to the works of the wicked. Again, there be wicked men, to whom it happeneth according to the work of the righteous. I said that this is also vanity. And so we only here for a short time. And so Israel, you only have a short time to store up your riches for Jesus, your Father. And so this is where your focus should be, not on storing up, because you can't take it with you. And your riches, it can't save you. What could save you is every word that proceeded out of the mouth of God. This book, this holy book, the commandments. Well, my name is Donnie Israel from the Israel Vineyard, and I hope that you get some understanding out of this lesson. Let's go over to Ecclesiastic 3, and we're going to read from 1 to 8. It says, to everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to pluck up that which is planted. A time to kill, a time to heal. A time to break down, and a time to build up. A time to weep, and a time to laugh. A time to mourn, and a time to dance. A time to cast away stones, and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to get, and a time to lose. A time to keep, and a time to cast away. A time to rent, and a time to sow. a time to keep silence, and a time to speak, a time to love, and a time to hate, a time of war, and a time of peace.